Hello everyone. So last time we talked about Abraham and Isaac, and what an amazing story about Isaac's self-sacrifice and willing to give himself up. Now we're going to talk about Isaac. He's older now. He's getting close to about 40 years old. His mother has died, and Abraham, his father, calls in one of his most trusted servants, and he says, it's time for Isaac to find a wife. But I don't want him to get married to any of the women that live here in the land of Canaan. They don't know God. And I want Isaac to have a wife from my own family back home. They know about God. So, Eliezer, his servant, took that upon him. And he took 10 camels with him, and he loaded it up with goods, with gifts and other things. And he made a promise to Abraham. Abraham made him promise. He says, you're going to go back to my home country, and I want you to find a wife of my own family. And Eliezer promised that. So sure enough, the time was ready, and he left, and it was a long journey because he traveled by camel. And it probably took him a couple of weeks at least to travel around what they call the Crescent Fertile and make their way back down to the city where Abraham's family was. His brother and his other relatives and the people that were there. As he approached, he started thinking, well, I'll bet he's been thinking for this whole time he's been traveling. He's been wondering, how am I going to find the right person? Now, he believed in God too, because he had been the servant of Abraham probably all his life. And he'd been praying to God and thinking about this. He's like, what can I do? I can't find the right person on my own. There's no way I'm going to leave this up to myself. And so he's been praying about this. And this is what he prayed. He says, God, I want to ask your help to find a wife for my master's son, Isaac. So here's the thing. I've got these camels, right? I've got 10 camels. And we've been traveling through the desert, and they need a drink. When I approach that well over there, here's my prayer, Lord. If you will send me the right woman for Isaac, I pray that when I ask for a drink, she will offer on her own to also water my camels. Now, how many of you have been near camels? How many of you have ridden a camel? How many of you know how much water a camel can drink? I looked it up because I didn't know. A camel, when he's thirsty, can drink as much as 53 gallons of water. One camel, 53 gallons. And it's also interesting, they can drink that much water in 3 minutes. That's a fast drink. Now, remember Eliezer had how many? 10 camels. Do you know how many gallons that is? If they're all thirsty, that's over 500 gallons of water. That's a lot to ask of a woman that might be the wife of Isaac. But that's what Eliezer prayed to God. He says, I'm asking that she will not only offer to give me a drink, but then draw water for my camels as well. Wow. Well, sure enough, as Eliezer approached, he just kind of hung out there. Here comes this beautiful young woman. She comes out, and she's got a pitcher on her shoulder, and she comes out, she's beautiful. And Eliezer is looking and he's wondering, is this the one? Well, she comes and she draws some water, and Eliezer approaches and he says, may I have a drink, please? She smiles and she says, oh, sure, of course. And she offers him a drink, and he takes a drink. And then afterwards she says, can I draw water for your camels as well? Oh, I can't believe it. 10 camels, over 500 gallons, potentially, if they're really, really thirsty. And Eliezer knew, this is the one. And he smiled, and then he brought out of a bag that he was carrying, he had this gold ring that he gave her as a gift. And he brought out a bracelet. And he put the bracelet on her hand. And he said, "Thank you. Here's a gift for you." Oh, she was excited. And then he started telling her where he was from. And he says, "I've traveled a long way. And my master is Abraham. And he's from this area." And she was so surprised. She had heard about great uncle Abraham. And she ran off. She went all the way home and she left him right there. Well, he wasn't sure what to think, but he had prayed. God had answered his prayer, so he knew she would come back eventually. He just kind of hung out there by the spring, and she ran all the way home, and she was so excited. She ran into the house. She's bubbling over with joy, and she's talking about all these things. She says, "This man came, and he asked me for water, and then I gave water to his camels too, and then he gave me this ring and this bracelet." And his family's like, whoa, slow down. And they said, "Well, tell us from the beginning what happened." So she told the story. And she told everything he had told her. And then her father ran back to the spring, and he was kind of embarrassed, you know. I mean, it's a custom to be generous and to offer and invite people into your home. And he ran out, and he found this man with his camels there, and he bowed low, and he says, "Please forgive my daughter. Please forgive my daughter. She should have invited you." And then he invited him to his home with all the camels. He says, "Come on, I've got space for you. I've got a space for the camels. We can bed them down with straw and fodder, and they can have a place for the night. And we have a place for you as well, and you're welcome to join us at our dinner table." So Eliezer got up, and he led his camels with him, and maybe he had a few others with him to help him on his trip. And they all made their way back to this home. Once they got there, they had a meal, and they were enjoying each other's company, and then Eliezer told his story. He told the story from the beginning about his master Abraham. He was old, and he had a son, Isaac, and his master Abraham made him promise that he would go back to his people, and he would find a wife for his son Isaac. And then he told how he had asked God for this sign, that he would ask for a drink of water, and the young woman would not only give him a drink, but also offer to water his camels too. And then he told how as he approached, he saw Rebekah coming, and that very same woman offered him a drink and to water his camels. And Rebekah's father jumped up and he says, "This is surely from the Lord. Surely this is from God. By all means, my daughter can be your master's son, wife, and she can go back with you." Well, it wasn't that simple. Rebekah's brother, Laban, he's like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's think this through a little bit. Now, Laban, we'll hear a little bit later about Laban. Laban was a little tricky, see. Anyways, he says, what if we wait 10 days? And after 10 days, then you can decide. Well, Rebekah's father, Laban's father, actually Eliezer, he's like, I can't wait that long. My master is waiting for me. My master's son is waiting for me. I need to leave soon. I know this is from God. And so the father, he says, why don't we ask Rebekah? Let's ask Rebekah what she thinks. So they brought Rebekah in, and again they told her the story again, and they asked, what would you do? This is your choice. And she thought about it. She says, I will go with you. This is from the Lord. I will go with you, and I will become your master's son's wife. So she got her things ready, and probably the next day they all took off. Can you imagine, as you get older, your parents arranging for you to get married? Here in America, we're used to the culture where we grow up and we fall in love and then we get married. And for me, it was my choice. But in this culture, and there are still some cultures today in other parts of the world, in this culture, the father arranged the wedding for the son. So here she comes. As she approaches the homeland, there's Isaac out in the field. He had just returned from someplace, and there he is out in the field, and he looked up and he saw the camels, and he recognized them. And he knew they were finally returning. They'd been gone maybe a month, and they were finally returning. He was kind of excited a little bit, and his heart started beating a little faster, wondering, did he bring back a wife for me? Was he successful? Well, Rebecca is on the camels, and she sees this man out in the fields, and she calls ahead to Eleazar, and she says, is that him? Are we close? Is that him? And Eleazar smiled, and he looks back, and he says, yes, that's Isaac. She says, stop, I must cover up. And so they stopped the whole camel train, and she got some things out of her bag, and she put on a veil, and she covered her face, and she covered it so that just her eyes were showing through, so that just she could see a little bit, but he couldn't see her face. Oh, he had to wait until they were officially married, and then she would uncover. Well, Isaac was excited. Of course, as they approached, he ran up to Eleazar. Did you find it? He noticed a woman on the camels. He's like, is that it? He looked up at Eleazar, and Eleazar smiled and nodded, and he was so excited, and he approached, and he bowed. He bowed, as what their custom was, and later that very day, that same day, they got married. How would you like that? Meeting your husband or your wife the very day that you get married. Well, that's not our culture here, but that was the story of Isaac and Rebecca. And the thing that I want you to remember most is always, always, always trust in God. Give your heart, give your life to God, and call on Him for help when you need it. And He will guide you. He will direct you throughout your whole life. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.